So let me ask you something. Who pays for that? Who literally pays for that 3%, right? At the end
You're
of the
gonna
day.
you and every other MSP operating in the state of Maryland is just gonna pass that on to the customer. The client is now gonna have a 3% more expensive bill.
Exactly. But it also means that at some point or another, all of those services, those commercialized services, we all pay for it as individuals somewhere along the line. And I'm just saying that it adds up and we all individually pay for those increases. It may be a business to business tax, but if I'm doing business and providing services for a company that is delivering service to consumers at large, their product prices are going up,
Well,
right? Because they're not
I
going to
know
just take that on the chin.
we're live, Mike. And may I say, you look good, even though I don't ever see you in a sport coat or blazer when you're at the peer group, because you're always in a very relaxed, contemplative mood. But it suits you well. This professional side of you looks good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if that's a compliment,
It is
but
a
I think it is.
compliment. Yeah. It's just when you interact with somebody and you're used to seeing them in one way and then you see them, in a different way, it's always and it could be, you always see them in, dressed up as a suit and then you see them in shorts for the first time. It's like, I don't recognize that. But
I know, I know, I
yeah,
know. And yeah, I've seen that happen. If I put a hat on, you definitely wouldn't be able to recognize me.
I don't think I've ever seen you in a hat.
There you go. See?
But yeah, maybe
I'll
maybe
sneak
that's
up
right.
on you next time. You'll think I'm not. Thanks for
Look,
having me today. Yeah.
no, thanks for coming on. Is this really your first podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, this I'm going to spoil it for you, right? No other future podcast will be as awesome as your first one on the MSP zone. So let me just set that straight for the record.
I have no doubt.
So orientation, people who don't know who Dresner Group is, you guys are a Maryland-based managed service provider. You've been around for a long time. Can you give us the backstory? Like, where did you come from? What did you start off as, and kind of where are you guys today?
A great question. Yeah. So we started back in 2002. My former partner, Brian, started this business and went into business with his dad and another guy, Eric Sumner at the time. We met one another at a poker game and we just started talking. And at the time I was working for somebody else and I had my a side hustle going on and I was just doing my best to learn the business. I had one of the greatest mentors at that time that I think anybody of my age could have asked for. His name was Frank Clark, and him and I are still friends to this day. And I ended up leaving his business and bringing the business that I had built over about a year and a half to Dresner Group and bought in as an equity partner at that time back in 2004. So January 1 of 2004 is when I started officially with Dresner Group as a partner. And then it was a very different, the IT space was very different back then, right? You remember it. I mean,
Yeah,
MSP Alliance was when did MSP Alliance start? 2000?
2000.
Yeah. Yeah, and so the idea of a MSP back then, first of all, nobody even really knew what an MSP was. I mean, we were selling small businesses back then on $300 a month of like IT support. That sort of recurring model way back then.
Just supporting their own existing gear, or did you
Yeah,
sell
yeah,
hardware too?
yeah. But it was all based on, well, they have 10 computers. I think it's going to take 4 hours of support a month, right? What man, we were wrong. We were wrong, but that's what we were selling. And even it was hard for people to wrap their heads around because it was a new concept. They just wanted to pay an hourly rate, but we wanted recurring, predictable revenue. So it was very break fix back then in 2004, and we started transitioning to kind of the more managed model in 2007, 2008, 2009, and that was by that time Comcast was delivering more broadband across areas that didn't really have it before. ISDN lines, teamed ISDN lines out the window, right? You weren't pushing people to buy T1s anymore. None of that, right? You're getting coax, you're bringing it in, it's easy, it's available. The transition started then. We were using Enable as a RMM tool. And for about 4 years, we used it very poorly. We made it
Can I
work.
ask you a question? Why do you think you were using it poorly? Did you know that you weren't taking advantage of it the way you should, or was it something else? I'm just curious. What like
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I mean, we knew, but we were too busy chasing business and trying to bring on clients and trying to grow and trying to add staff to be able to sort of take a step back. It sounds counterproductive, counterintuitive almost, right? Like it kind of does, but it's sort of like, I'll deal with it. Like I'm going to get there, right? We're getting hundreds of alerts a day from Enable that are false positives. Tickets are opening and closing, and we knew which ones to look for. Don't get me wrong, but there was just a lot of noise, and we just kind of learned to ignore it. But sometimes, and we all know this, sometimes in the noise is actual real stuff. So you got to really sort through it. Anyway, man, in 2012, I think it was, we sort of, maybe 2011, we took a hard look at Enable and how it was configured with Autotask, our PSA, right? We're legacy, we're like Autotask early birds, man, 2007, 2008, still are. Anyway, took a look at that and fixed it. It jumped us to the next level. We became more of an MSP the next morning once that was all done, right? Months and months of work. But that
what was
first
that
morning,
like? Did you know it? Did your technical team know it? Like, what was there a moment of oh, this is what it should have been like?
I mean, I knew it. I don't know that. I think everybody appreciated the less noise at the time and getting more stuff that was actionable. But yeah, no, it was nice. It felt good. It felt good. It felt good. We weren't, clutter is consuming. No matter, even if you try and push it to the side, it still takes up space.
Mike, I'm struck by what you said because I know that that's a story that so many other providers have had or are having now, and they never ever get to that moment of there's a better way. Like the noise can go away, it can die down. Maybe it can't go away, but it can get brought down to a manageable level. And I'm curious how many people never get to that moment that you got to. It's got to be a lot.
I don't know. I certainly would have done things differently back then. If I would have, the old saying, if I would have known then what I know now.
That's
But
life.
it's a journey though, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
journey's the journey.
yeah. I get
And
it. So talk to me about it sounded like you started kind of in a traditional managed services mode, covering the fundamentals. You guys took a turn not that long ago, I don't think, with a new area of security monitoring devices. Talk to us about that because I think that would be good for everyone listening. That's kind of a unique area that not every MSP gets into, but you guys found it pretty successfully.
yeah, that was that's really been a lot of fun. It's added a lot of new excitement to our business. It's allowed us to compete in the area. Yeah, I would go as far back as saying we started getting approached maybe 10 years ago about, our clients wanted surveillance. They wanted access control, but more importantly, they just wanted cameras. Cameras fit in pretty tightly with infrastructure and IT, and whether we're part of the equation or not, in terms of a proposal delivery and winning the opportunity, whether we're involved in that process or not, we're still involved in some capacity at some point, right? Because they're going to be calling us, they're going to need access, they're going to need firewall reconfigurations, etc. So we were outsourcing it and subcontracting it to a local vendor here for quite some time, and um, it was sort of amongst all the darkness of COVID and what that did to the world, to everybody individually. I mean, it was despite anyone's position on that, it was a major disruption, right, in terms of like how we do things. Well, our vendor, the guy who we've been using for the longest time, he ran a small business north of Baltimore, and it put him out of business. But for him, it was kind of the right time. He was ready to retire anyway, and so it was just really sort of a catalyst that got him there.
It's a little push,
Yeah,
little nudge from Mother Nature.
little nuts. So at the time, he had a guy that was working for him that was doing a majority of the work that we were subbing to them in terms of surveillance. He went out on his own, started his own business, found out real quickly that he did a great job as far as the work that he was delivering. There was a lot of demand for it, and he wanted to be part of a larger team and part of a bigger picture. And we wanted him to be part of a bigger picture. So he joined with us, and now we ran his business as it's a division of Dresner Group, and we focus on surveillance and access control and low voltage cabling, and that's growing. That's ever expanding, and it's doing really well. And I think surveillance, at the end of the day, for me, wanting to jump into that, cybersecurity has grown so much over the last 5 years, which I know we'll talk about, right? Like man, I don't even know. IT in general is I mean, with my clients, we don't even really talk about break fix. There's nothing break fix anymore. It's all strategy. It's all cyber. It's all posture. It's all that stuff that consumes the conversation. And surveillance and access control checked those boxes, big boxes, for our clients. It plugged right in, and it allowed us to deliver even more of a service value add service to our clients, which positioned us in a much stronger way than we ever had been before.
So, good segue because I do want to talk to you about and get your thoughts on the current state of cybersecurity, and not just in the greater Maryland, Baltimore area, but nationwide, globally. A curious thing that you brought to my attention, even as we continue to monitor global, it was just someone on social media mentioned that there's a new UK, right? UK is now pushing kind of their version of this. Is it that time of the day already? Yeah, well, I have
Five
to go.
o'clock somewhere, Charles.
All right. Episode 2, we'll have to, I didn't come prepared. Sorry, but you go ahead and enjoy. I think it's HB 352, which is a Maryland House of Delegates proposal passed this year, 2025, to levy a new tax on IT services. You brought that to my attention. I looked into it. I don't want to get into motive. I want to just talk about, if this thing passes, what it's going to do for MSPs and what it's going to do for Maryland businesses and entities who want to secure themselves, because that's the first thing I look at is what is the unintended consequence. But what was your thought when you first saw that idea?
Uh, how unfiltered is this podcast, by the way? Are we totally unfiltered? Does it matter?
No, I mean, yeah, it's up to you. Yeah, go for it. I'll plug my ears if you want to use some bad
No,
words.
no, no. I mean, I think it's a disaster. I do. I think it's a disaster tax proposal. I think it's going to do more damage than it does good. I think it's Baltimore trying to, I'm sorry, Maryland trying to add pile on more tax to fix what was not that long ago a pretty balanced budget in the state of Maryland. And so now we go from that to a major deficit. Maryland, yeah, without getting into motive, I mean, just stating simple facts. I mean, Maryland is regarded as a high tax state already, right? Although it seems relatively, there are some areas of Maryland tax that is tolerable to deal with from a business to business standpoint.
Yeah. I'm looking at this right now, Michael, and this is from Ernst and Young's website, and it says the proposed legislation beginning July 1, 2025. It hasn't been signed into law yet, I don't believe. Would deal with data or information technology services as described under NAICS Sector 518, 519, 5415. I don't know what those are. System software or application software publishing services, and then a whole list of licensing of media or software rights, which sounds more like your streaming services, like a Netflix. But I'm wondering if it seems like whether they intended it or not, they're sweeping into data processing, hosting and related services under NAICS 518, which I'm going to do a search right now and see what that says. But that's got to be very similar to web hosting services, right? Why wouldn't that touch on like Microsoft 365? A lot of the software that you guys in the MSP sector use for security, like EDR subscription services.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a mess. What little bit I know about it is it's going to be impactful to the MSP community, to anybody who's providing IT services, professional services, accounting services. Um, that year after, like, there's been some years where they'll try and push something like this. This isn't the first time this has happened, but it's catching major attention. And I think the concern is that, okay, so it's at 3%. Now it's passed, let's say, hypothetically. What happens in 4 years? And, does it get to 4% next year or the year after? Or how does it increase? And then what happens if the deficit grows, right? This is to address some of I think we have a $3.3 billion deficit ish in Maryland. And so it's helping to project it to address some of that. But I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I think that there are places where people will be able to outsource potentially and skirt some tax law, and businesses will be able to save. They'll seek service from other locations if they can. 3% may not seem like a lot. 3% on $30 isn't a lot. 3% on 3 million is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking of, all right, forget and look, I remember back in mid 2000s in California when Governor Schwarzenegger was in Sacramento, and the House passed it was a anti-spyware, right? You remember that time when there was like spyware was everywhere and everybody was talking about it, and California passed an anti-spyware bill, and it necessarily included and would have treated like all the RMM agents that you guys deploy as spyware, because that's how someone wrote it in the bill. So there's a lot of people who, because they don't understand managed services, they write these types of things and say, "Oh, we're going to make a ton of money by going after Netflix subscription and shore up our budget shortfall." But to your point, Mike, you're talking about 3%. It's now 3% more expensive if this bill passes into law. 3% more expensive to safeguard Maryland entities against nation state attacks. Like that's the takeaway. That's the headline if someone doesn't fix that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's on top of all of the other increases that people are already facing. So let me ask you something. Who pays for that? Who literally pays for that 3%, right? At the end
You're
of the
gonna
day.
you and every other MSP operating in the state of Maryland is just gonna pass that on to the customer. The client is now gonna have a 3% more expensive bill.
Exactly. But it also means that at some point or another, all of those services, those commercialized services, we all pay for it as individuals somewhere along the line. And I'm just saying that it adds up and we all individually pay for those increases. It may be a business to business tax, but if I'm doing business and providing services for a company that is delivering service to consumers at large, their product prices are going up,
Well,
right? Because they're
I
not going to
know
just take that on the chin.
no, I know, but Michael, that's the scary thing is that I wouldn't want a Maryland entity to suddenly say, faced with a 3% increase, we can do without that because I know darn well you were in the same meeting with me and a handful of other certified MSPs when we spoke to the feds
Yeah.
last year, and they were all about pushing out the CPGs, the cybersecurity performance goals, right? And those CPGs, very much based on my understanding of that Maryland proposed bill, would be impacted. All those things, the technology that you guys need to get to your clients would be impacted in Maryland by 3%, right? Like that just doesn't seem like a really good strategy if you want to make your businesses and state agencies more secure.
No, no, it doesn't. And I don't even know, honestly, that I don't know how a business is going to handle it. I really don't. No, they're not going to want to increase their prices, but they're going to want to keep their data safe. So they're going to have to find potentially they may look to they may look at it as either, I mean, it's, the tax is going to come through regardless because of the services that we're providing, right? It's not just incrementally applied to certain subsets of things that we're doing. So it's going to come through. It's an all or nothing thing. So, which could potentially mean that they may say, depending on the size of the contract, hey, let us find an organization that can skirt this tax law based on their location, based on whatever.
Well, you're talking about a non-Maryland based service provider who sell, but I wonder if that would still evade the tax or if they would be subject to it.
It's a good question. It's a good question. And I think some will say that it would be applied regardless. But I think others out there might have other ideas.
So it's not like this hasn't happened in the past. We have had plenty of interactions with legislative bodies who have wanted to act on the question of something impacting MSPs, and they've come to us or they've heard about us and they said, hey, should we do this? If there is someone out there involved in Maryland politics at the legislative level and they're listening to this podcast, what would you say to them? Like, hey, make carve out, if you're going to tax Netflix as a subscription data media service tax, fine, but don't make it more expensive and costly to defend against and protect Maryland businesses. Like, would you be okay with I'm asking you a political question here, like you're running for office or something, but you know, you get what I'm saying?
I do. I would say, is Maryland pro business? Yes or no? That would be my question to them.
Fair enough.
Because this is not pro business.
It's not pro security. I mean, anything that makes it more costly to do what everybody in the United States needs to be doing, which is spending more time and effort and resources on protection of national critical infrastructure, including small business. I don't see how that accomplishes that goal by putting yet another obstacle in their way.
I don't either. And as I mentioned, B2B business in Maryland has historically taxes on that type of transaction um, have been tolerable. I mean, we don't have any. We're not paying sales and use tax. I mean, we're taxing the goods and the licenses and the things that are necessary that we need to. But when we're talking about professional services, labor,
Let's hope that someone out there forwards this to somebody who knows somebody who works in Maryland's legislative process and pays attention. And if you guys want to come on and ask us questions, or if you want to set the record straight, maybe we're misinterpreting how this bill, because I'm assuming they're going to go through some back and forth the process, before it gets signed by the governor eventually. At first blush, yeah, I would say that this is not the step in the right direction. If you want to tax streaming services and make up, budget shortfall that way, that's a separate issue. But I think I'm with you, Mike, that I think anything that makes it more costly to do the things that everybody from the federal government on down says is a national priority. This seems like this is just making it easier, for the bad guys to get in. I hate to say it that way, but
yeah, it's not helpful. It really isn't. And we could probably go on and on and on and talk about it until we're blue in the face. The only thing I can hope is that it doesn't get fully passed, and that Wes Moore isn't going to be signing anything come anytime soon when it comes to this.
we will rest assured we'll keep our eye on this one, and hopefully it gets modified. But
Yeah,
yeah, I credit you, Mike, for bringing this to our attention, and yeah, that was awesome.
yeah, sure,
Shifting
yes,
to
yeah,
cybersecurity in general, like just evolving this theme in your neck of the woods with your customers. By the way, it's not like you just service customers in Maryland. You had a really cool story that you shared at the last Inspire peer group meeting about your expansion into other states. And, you're, how many states are you in now? I mean, you're at least in two, if not more.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, we're doing business in Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Florida, Arkansas, and Mississippi, I think.
That's that's
Yeah, it's weirdly spread out.
East Coast through Central, kind of Midwest almost.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, it's not we're not targeting businesses in those areas. I mean, you look at our website, you look at like all of our marketing material and what we're doing. I mean, we're here. We're a Maryland business through and through. That's what we are. It's what we are always going to be. But what we'll never say no to is helping our clients grow and doing what they need from an IT partner, right?
But to follow that point, this is more of an organic expansion, as I understand it, which is
Yeah,
these are not like a Texas company said, "Hey, I'm going to call up a Maryland MSP and say, can you guys help us?" This was
exactly.
an existing customer who says, "I need to expand out." Or did I get that wrong?
Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. You have it right. I mean that's precisely what I'm saying is that we've grown and gotten to these areas because of demand from our clients, right? And so an IT I mean, for us, I mean, you can look at it one of two ways. You can either say, I can't do it. I don't have the bandwidth. It's too much. Or you could go after it, right? In IT, in our business, I know if I'm not there for my client, somebody else will be. And so I embrace that every day. For us, this particular client that you're talking about, their biggest location is here in Maryland. and they have a location in Florida and Texas and also Kentucky. And they were outsourcing. They had four different MSPs in the mix. Um, us being one of the four. Just so happens to be that this Baltimore location is by far their biggest operation that they have. So yeah, their CFO approached us and he wanted to consolidate some things and wasn't very happy with the vendor that they had supporting this business down there. And yeah, we were presented with the opportunity to do it. And for us, it was a no brainer. You want to know why? It was a no
Yeah,
brainer.
no, absolutely.
It was a no brainer because I'm part of this really, really fun peer group called Inspire. And I was able to lean on, one of the companies, one of the organizations that's in that group. It
Well,
helped. It helped in a big way.
okay, I appreciate that. As does the MSP that you ultimately chose to work with. If you didn't have that, many other MSPs historically, based on my actual knowledge, because a member will call us up and say, "Hey, do you know anybody in Timbuktu?" Right, like weird places around the globe, and it's not always do you have resources. It's a do you trust these people? And I can't help but think that the same thing that you went through with a positive outcome is a barrier for expansion for a number of MSPs, because otherwise all they're left with are basically just foot soldier agents that they get through kind of these services where they'll just say, hey, it's kind of like two guys in a server,
Yeah.
and they tell them to show up in some place and do this thing and that's it. But I can't help but think that that's not enough for guys like you who want to just know that it's going to be done right. And there's a trust element, is there not, to
Yeah,
this?
big time, big time. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I'm thankful that I have a group of people, a group of trusted partners of mine in the MSP space that I can turn to throughout the country if I need help. If I need boots on the ground in California because of some opportunity, I know exactly who I'm calling, right? Kentucky, Florida, Virginia, even though it's right around the corner, but maybe South Virginia, Arkansas. I know the guys that I'll be calling firsthand.
Yeah, and I'm assuming there's reciprocity there. Like they would know that you're there in Maryland if ever that came up and you could help.
Yeah, Boston. I don't want to leave out Boston. We all love Boston. Of course.
Yeah, good chowder. Well, yeah, I'm fascinated by the organic expansion of the modern MSP, because you know, the old adage was an MSP could monitor anything as long as there was an internet connection, right?
Yeah.
And something that could be monitored.
Yeah.
But it's not that simple. The old face to face business, or at least having people on site or regionally close, does matter. And I think that you found a way to do it, not by having to go to some ambiguous service. You went with a trusted community that you said, I know these guys could do the work. That allows me to have you're boxing above your weight class, right? To put it into boxing terms.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good way to look at it. But I'll say this: like, I want to go back. We were talking earlier about like where we are, where we started, and kind of the history of Dresdner Group and where we are today. We wouldn't be able to do that. We wouldn't be able to take a client on in Texas. We wouldn't be able to take a client on in Arkansas or in wherever, Pennsylvania, Florida. We wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't have proper procedure and policy. And we because we take the time to adopt these things, because we take the time to document these things. And I'm saying this for anybody that's out there listening, for any smaller MSP that says, I ain't got time for that, right? I ain't got time for it. And you don't. It's hard. It's hard to make time for it. But actually, I'm going to take that back. It's not even about, most don't have the time. They don't make the time, but you have to take the time. You have to prioritize the time to put these things in place, because I promise you, eventually, if you stick with it long enough, it helps your organization evolve. And my point is that if we didn't start doing that over a decade ago, I don't know that we'd be doing what we're doing today.
Are you talking about the noise level, that the noise had to come down to a level and a point where you could then say, I can now focus on stuff like expansion. We got available resources that otherwise would have been tied up dealing with that noise. Is that what?
No, not necessarily. I mean, that's one thing. That's just monitoring thresholds and what we're looking for. That noise we were talking about earlier. No, I'm talking about internal process, policy, and procedure of how we do things as an organization, right? Whatever it may be, whether it's how we hire people, how we deliver service, how we document SOPs for the client, whatever it might be, automations, workflows within all those. I mean, it's everything. It's everything. All the efficiency factors, right? If you had a box called efficiencies, right? It's pretty full. It's pretty full because it's, how do you define efficiencies, right? Like I become, you create efficiencies if you have the same things coming in and going out, and you know how to respond to them, and you can create a consistent experience for your technicians as well as your clients. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But all I'm saying is that, like, that's a big part of it. We wouldn't have been able to do and expand organically and say yes to these opportunities and been successful at it had we not had all those other things.
Makes perfect sense. Along that line, I would love your thoughts on this topic of automation, because I know your colleagues talk about it a lot. It comes up in the peer group discussions a lot. And it's not like there aren't like a growing and growing number of vendors and tools that are all focused on, hey, we're going to help you automate your MSP practice.
Uh,
What's your thoughts just briefly on that whole issue?
I, the efficiency box. I mean, automation is great and it works for certain things right now. We had an experience it was last year. I mean, we know how fast automation is evolving right now. It is any company that has any kind of budget for R&D, right? They're putting it towards it. So it's growing by the second of every day, I feel like. Our experience last year was what it was. We tried a product. It was not a good fit for us.
And this was an automation tool. You don't have to say it unless you want to, but it was an automation tool specifically, right?
Yeah. No, I don't want to upset anybody. I mean, it was there's going to be lots of tools out there. I mean, let's face it. Kaseya is developing an automation tool. I'm sure that ConnectWise has one. I don't know much about their stack, of products. I'm sure that Ninja and all these guys, right? They have automation that all these companies around the world, whether in IT or not, are working on methods to develop automation in some capacity or another, differently than how it's been from uh, for up to the recent past, meaning that, like, automation in factories and things like that, that's all been around. But this AI component that everybody's so fascinated with today, to automate and streamline services, MSP. Well, I think there is a big part of. I just think there are elements missing still. I guess I don't know. I don't know how else to really say it. I don't think it's.
Okay.
We're going to get there. It's going to get there.
I sense you're at the precipice of something, so I'm going to ask you a leading question.
Uh,
Do you think that the Do you think that there's a perception by some MSPs that an automation tool is going to take a reactive, chaotic, borderline mature MSP, you know, maybe they're doing some things right, but maybe they got a lot of maybe 40, 50% of their customers are still break fix, right? They're still dragging them and creating, drag and efficiency drag.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's a perception that these automation tools are just going to revolutionize them? And that's not the case. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I don't
you
know.
know,
I don't know if they think that. I think that in some cases, there is hope that it's going to automate more than what it's actually capable of. And I think there are some vendors out there that may represent it as one thing, but once you dive into it, you find out that there are more limitations than what you had hoped. I guess there's different forms of automation. So if you can find a way to automate workflows, like things that make us efficient are when tickets come in to our system, they're evaluated and they're placed appropriately based on the content of the message that comes in. We are using automation for that. We're not using artificial intelligence for that. I think that once that gets there, again, everybody that's going to watch this knows we're using Autotask and Datto and some of the things, we're a Kaseya company, like it or not. That's what we use a majority of their products, not all of them, but a good amount of them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those products, these are all products that were independently owned and operated, and then just swooped up by Kaseya and integrated into their umbrella. But I think if Kaseya can develop a AI component to their ecosystem of products that they have now, that in turn an MSP can use to leverage the data that they're taking in to help streamline operations, I think that's a lower hanging fruit than to say, hey, I've got a product that's going to allow your service desk technicians to open and close tickets faster and do the work for them, and then not actually do the work because there's manual components that change for each client that you deal with.
so the automation can only take you so far. What really is going to make a difference for the MSP community might be appropriately stated as AI or machine learning efficiencies that go beyond just automation. It's faster access to information that you can rely on and cut down on time that way. So it's not like just automating 10 tasks that you have to do every single day for every single customer. Like that's low hanging fruit, it sounds like. And really you want like, make me faster with this ticket, better, more accurate with this ticket.
Yes, what is available now, I think there is some of that is going to evolve faster than the other.
I accept that. Yeah, definitely.
So it was unfortunately we were let, we were disappointed when we trialed a product. We were disappointed because we thought we were going to be able to do something with it, but it's fine. It is what it is. We learned from it. It's part of the journey. And today, well, we're hoping that I can see different forms of automation that would be helpful. Now, let's talk though about Copilot or like Chat GPT. Let's talk about that kind of AI.
So as you know, because you've been in the room in the same peer groups discussions, and almost all of your colleagues that I've heard have said, AI is really solid, but we're only going to use it internally. Like it's only for the back end MSP staff. Like they're not really wanting to let it loose in front of the client. That's been my takeaway for the last 12 months.
Okay.
Hey, look, do you
Okay.
use Copilot, the 365? So we do. And it's like having you know, like a stupid person who isn't probably worth a full job, title or, it's like it would be like paying a 15-year-old me to start, a presentation or to start a article or to start an email or to do something. But I'm going to have to get in there and take over at some point. They're never going to take it to completion. It's always going to need me to come in and polish it and make it my own. Otherwise, it's going to be a substandard product. Does that make
Right,
sense?
right, exactly. And so how much time does it save you in that presentation?
Well, 15-year-old me out there, in this context is always answering very fast, even though
Yeah,
the answer may
yeah,
not always be right. So
yeah,
I'm getting a 15-year-old me answer and I say, well, of course you would say that. I know a lot more than you do now. So let me take this and I'll make it better.
yeah.
But it has a time saving, but it could get a lot better the more functional it can be with the stuff. And I sense that it's getting better incrementally, but because it's learning itself.
Yeah, I agree. So we don't use Copilot. I say we. I don't use Copilot.
I'm trying to think of what it would do for an MSP, and I think back to your example of, yeah, it would be ideal if it could be applied to a ticket system where it could say, here's everything you need to know about this client. And right, it's not client facing, but it's MSP technician facing, and it's giving them everything they need. And it's saying, there's a high likelihood that this legacy problem with this client or this device could be solved this way, right? And it would like give you that actionable level of information. I don't know if we're there yet. I sense that we're not quite there yet
I
as an
think we're getting
industry.
that. I think we're getting real close.
I agree. I think we're close. Like maybe this year we'll see something break through, or 2026 maybe.
I hope this year. I mean, I hope. I mean, that would be great. There's no secret that Kaseya has this Cooper bot, the thing that they're working on. They got a lot of money in their pockets, right? I think they're working really hard to be the first to bring something very interactive, very in your face, very delivering the information that you need to know, and possibly even going as far as helping your clients on some kind of integrated chat rolls into your ticketing and rolls and is interactive with history and data and acts as if they know. Like I think it's when it gets there, it's going to be really nice. But
Yeah.
I think that, sorry, just to add to, if you don't have your house in order with all these other things, you're going to be hard pressed to take proper advantage of it.
Put another way, I don't think any MSP should be worried about a MSP bot taking over their client relationships, because I think you're absolutely right. There's no way that this technology is going to replace humans or a full-fledged MSP shop. There's
No
just too
way. No way.
many.
No way.
Yeah.
But if your clients, if you're doing what we do, focusing on the relationship, focusing on the partnership, focusing on the things that the strategy really, really working with the client day in and day out. What this does is it takes you to a whole nother level. It's not, it actually excels your growth, than more than replaces people. You're probably adding people to assist with the additional growth and workload that you're going to have from being so
But you
fast and being so fast and efficient and timely and solving your clients' problems so quickly that your your name is even, you're going to get referrals and get lead generation from your clients more organically than you ever have before. You will
might
separate yourself from the pack. pretty quickly.
I completely get what you're saying. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Do you think that the legacy MSP issue of staffing and HR limitations would be changed for the positive in what you just said, which is that you wouldn't AI wouldn't stop you from hiring. It would allow you to hire more aggressively. Would it change the type of person you hire, is my question. Less technical, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. You're still going to have that. You're still going to need that. I mean, there's nobody. The problem is that the products are, there's so much legacy technology out there that's being used still to this day that will have the products, the automation can't fit into it. There's going to be a disconnect between what it can actually do in terms of delivery. So you're still going to have somebody there pushing the buttons and doing what needs to be done. Whether or not they're getting step by step instruction from this automated utility, that's a whole nother conversation. So
Well,
to your point, maybe I can't, I don't know.
like I could see the MSP of the future as you guys grow and expand, that you would be able to expand with less higher technical proficiency positions, meaning fewer technical people would be able to fulfill their role with a larger army of customer service centric, but still competent technical people aided by AI and automation tools that the MSP has deployed that would allow them to do things like, you know, speak competently at a level one, uh, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's so new. I tend to have I tend to think I tend to think kind of the opposite. I think there's still going to and continue to be for a long time the need for very technically versed individuals at an MSP. Um, I almost think that I think there's more space for the tier two and the tier threes. I think as a tier one, I think if you're not growing as a tier one, you should be concerned. Seriously.
Or
Because
someone's going to be
automation
concerned
will,
for you.
yeah, yeah. AI will, it's a matter of like password read, like the things that are a tier one tech is handling. I think those are also, using the low hanging fruit term. Those are the things that are going to be addressed first, I think.
I think you're right. It's logical to assume that. Real quickly, I don't want this to turn into a 3 hour podcast for your sake. Although that would be epic, right? If I did the first 3 hour MSP zone and that was your first podcast experience. I
Yeah.
won't do that to you. Your ice will melt before we get done with the podcast. What's your politics aside? What's your sentiment for the upcoming year? We're into Q2 now. I guess with regards to just general attention from customers to IT general things and security in specific. Are you bullish or bearish right now?
Bullish, very bullish.
Demand is still strong. Customers are still calling. Customers still see the need as of right now.
I am, yes, absolutely. We are very happy with performance this year. We are, I'll say this much. January historically is a time where you don't always feel like you feel a little bit of stalling, I guess, occurring, maybe just slow to move. January 1 for us was as busy as every other day in 2024, and it's not let up. And I'm very thankful for that. I am, I feel very very blessed that we have an organization that is doing what it's doing. That we have a team that is able to do what they do. Look, let's face it. I'm not the guy that's on the front lines of this, right? I'm building relationships. Our team, our folks are the ones that make a difference. They're the ones that have impact. They're the ones that make my life easy when it comes to our meetings that we have with them. So really, the team, they deserve the praise. And if it weren't for them doing what they do, would January 1 be as busy as it was? Absolutely not.
Point. Michael, thanks for coming on the MSP Zone. Really appreciate you spending the time. If I'd love to have you back as we monitor this Maryland tax increase law, just to keep an eye on it. And if I come across anything, I'll let you know. But please do the same. I know you will, but this is too important not to closely monitor.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And yeah, no, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It was quite the experience.
See, it wasn't that bad. Painless.
Yeah.